Hello Year 10s and welcome to our first lesson looking at Bristol, which is going to be our case study in a high income country, HIC. Obviously, our last lesson you started to look at how population was distributed around the United Kingdom and where the main high density areas were in the UK, and also some of the reasons for that to do with things like the climate and where the main roads were, location like closeness to ports and airports. But now we're starting to focus more on one city. So in the same way we looked at Rio before when we were looking at newly emerging economies, now we're looking at a case study in a high income country. So in this lesson, we are going to try and think where Bristol is and describe the location geographically. So we probably all know roughly where Bristol is, but using correct geographical terms to describe its location. We're going to learn about how Bristol is important in the region of the Southwest and England, and also why it might be important internationally. And then finally, we're going to look a little bit at how Bristol's changed, how migration has changed Bristol, how it's made it more multicultural, and also think about some of the advantages and disadvantages, some of the pros and cons of that migration. So first of all, I want you to have a look at these photographs. So if you write down numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and each of these pictures, one picture is taken in Bristol and one picture has been taken in Rio, our previous case study. And all I want you to do is next to number 1 or 2, write Rio or Bristol. Okay, so one of those is Rio, one of those is Bristol. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to do that. So pause the video now and take a couple of minutes writing Rio or Bristol next to them, and then we'll look to see which ones were correct. Okay, so going to look at the answers now. So number 1 is Bristol. So they have something called the St Paul's Carnival every year, or previously before COVID. And obviously number 2 is Rio, part of the Carnival, one of these big international events that we learnt about when we were looking at Rio. Picture 3 is Rio. Clearly you don't have those huge mountains in Bristol, but Bristol does have a harbour, and they do have a harbour festival, and in that picture there, number 4, you can see the Matthew, which is a replica of a ship which John Cabot travelled to America in, one of the first people to discover America, or one of the first Europeans. Obviously Native Americans lived there way before that. And then number 5 and 6, they are both large dock areas. Number 5 is Bristol, Avonmouth, and number 6 is Rio. Okay, so see how many you got right out of those 6. So if we're looking at those, can we see any similarities between Bristol and Rio? You know, one's in Brazil, one's in England, very different, but we can already see that there are some similarities. You know, the relatively famous festivals, they both have harbours and docks, and they're both relatively near the coast as well. Okay, so first main task, what I'd like you to do is pause the video and give yourself 5 minutes, and using the map on the left, I want you to describe Bristol's location. Okay, I put some prompts on there. So think about things like this when you're writing in full sentences. First one, which part of the UK is Bristol in? For that, you might want to look at this map here, which looks at where Bristol is within the whole of the UK. Which region is it in? So remember, think about regions as south, southeast, southwest. Use the compass there to help. Which region is Bristol in? And then what's it near to? So what are the other main towns, rivers, roads that Bristol is located near to? Okay, so give a proper, decent description of Bristol's location. Okay, so pause the video now, give yourself 5 minutes. Okay, So going on to the next task, we're going to start thinking about why Bristol is regionally and nationally important. Okay, so regional means within the UK, obviously, and national is within the UK. Bristol is one of the UK's 10 core cities. That's the main cities in the UK, along with places like London, Manchester, and Birmingham. On this mind map here, we can see under some main headings some of the main important features of Bristol in terms of its industry, education, culture, and tourism. Okay, so have a look at those and think about why that makes Bristol important within the UK. You're going to need to go back to these in a minute, so you can just go back on the video once you know what the task is. This next slide shows a lot of information about why Bristol is important as an international city. So why it's, again, when we did Rio, we looked at why Rio was important within Brazil, but also why it was important internationally. So things like the major international events like the Olympics and World Cup. So this here's thinking about why Bristol is important. Bristol is important internationally. So the fact that it has a major port in Avonmouth where goods are exported and imported from all over the world. The fact that it has some industries which are internationally important. So Airbus that make the massive Airbus 300 aeroplane. BMW, obviously you've heard of them. Bristol University is a world-renowned university, so one of the best universities in the world. Okay, so there's some of the reasons why it might be considered to be important internationally. Again, you're going to need to go back in a minute on using this video to look at these two slides to complete the task. Okay, so what I'd like you to do is, first of all, going back to the slide with the regional importance, I want you to create a mind map or use bullet points to summarize how Bristol is important regionally. Remember, regionally means within the UK. Then, using the international information, I want you to try and answer that question there. So using examples, explain why Bristol is important internationally. Now, on the next slide, I will show you in a second, there's a structure you can use to answer that question. Okay, so in order to get the full 6 marks, you're going to be making a point and then developing it with an example. So point develop 3 times. And then when you've finished that, and you should pause the video and take about 10 minutes to do those 2 activities. When you've done that, if you have a look at the YouTube clip, you'll need to manually write that into to another tab. There's a video there from Visit Bristol, which shows some of the attractions of Bristol. Okay, so pause the video or go back now and look at the 2 slides and spend about 10 minutes doing these 2 questions. As I said, on the next slide, there is a grid to help you answer the second question. So you can now pause the video, 10 minutes, and move back and forwards and be ready to move on in a second. Okay, so we've looked at why Bristol is important within the UK and why it's important internationally. Now, because Bristol's always had a link to the wider world, you know, Bristol was a centre for slavery, involved in the trade with the plantations in America, tobacco. It was one of the biggest ports in the world back in the sort of 1800s. And because of that, people have migrated to Bristol from all over the world. So Bristol has large Afro-Caribbean population, Polish population, Somali populations in various parts of the city. So on this slide here, if you take some time to read it through, and it also talks about some of the impacts that migration and migrants have had on the city of Bristol. Now those impacts can be positive, things such as enriching the city's cultural life, but they can also be negative. So, you know, an increased number of migrants can put pressure on housing. If those migrants come from places where English isn't the first language, then obviously that makes education difficult. You might need to employ teachers or TAs who speak additional languages. So that can be a negative. Okay, so you're going to be using this slide to answer the questions. What I'd like you to do is, first of all, can you explain why people have migrated to Bristol from abroad? So you might need to look back at the last slide and think, what is it about Bristol that's encouraged people? What links does it have with other countries that have encouraged people to move there? Next, on the last slide, there was a bar chart, and I want you to have a look at that and think about your geographical numeracy. What are the 4 main countries that migrants come from in Bristol? And then finally, copy the table below with the 2 columns, and then go back to look at the impacts mind map on the last slide and categorize those impacts as either positive or negative. And I've done one for you. So you can see that one positive impact of migration to Bristol was that migrants become part of a hardworking and motivated workforce. Okay, so there's a positive from there. It won't necessarily be even. I think it's 5 positives and 3 negatives. Okay, so if you, again, go back to the last slide, pause the video, give yourself about 10 minutes or so to complete these questions. And then you can go back and move on to the next slide. Okay, so these are the answers. These are the ones you should have got in each side of the table. So positive impacts, part of the hardworking workforce, enriching the cultural life of the city, filling in skills where there may be shortages, adding to the local, sort of Bristol and the UK economy. And finally, migrants, same as when we looked at Rio, tend to be younger, and so they tend to balance the aging population that we've got in the UK. But some of the problems and challenges can be issues with integration, where migrants maybe don't speak the language or have different religion and don't integrate into sort of UK culture, pressure on housing, and also issues where English isn't the first language. Okay, so check that you've got those in the right side and you understand the pros and cons of migration in Bristol. So next lesson, we will go on to look at how urban change can create social opportunities for people in high-income country cities. Okay, and we'll continue to use Bristol as our case study. Now, obviously, if there's anything you've missed in this video, you can go backwards and forwards and make sure that you complete all the work. As always, if you can do the work on paper, take a photograph, upload it that way, or you can complete the work in Word document and send it. And you can send it through class charts, through Google Classroom, or by emailing your specific teacher. For some of you, you may have a different teacher at the moment. For example, 10C1, who I don't normally teach. If you can make sure you send your work to me, and 10B2, who I don't normally teach, if you send your work to Miss Waters, okay, and we'll be the ones who are setting your work anyway. Okay, just to finish off, people in Bristol, some people in Bristol have a particular dialect, a particular way of speaking.
I wish you like your lunch today. Ooh, RKE, you've got new dabs? I'm off to Bristol to get some cider. I've arrived in Bristol. Cheers, drive. Hello everyone, this is Billy. Today I'm going to talk about Bristol dialect words. The Bristol dialect is one of the most popular dialects in southwest England, and it is also called Bristolian. Then let's take a look at some Bristolian words. First of all, you need to remember that Bristol is called Bristol by local people because of the accent. Then let's take a look at some dialect words. The first one is a phrase, and it's "Albeast." It looks like a different language, right? Albeast is from the phrase "how beast," and it means "how are you?" The word beast is used for the second person in Old English, and people in Bristol still use this word. So when a Bristolian says like "how beast," that means "how are you?" The next one is "girt." Can you guess what it means? In Bristolian, girt means very or big. Also, people in Bristol often say "girt lush," which means very good. So when you want to say that something is really good, you can say like "good lush." Then let's take a look at an example sentence. Hey, how are you? You look very good today. I'll bet you look very lush today. Hey, how are you? You look very good today. I'll bet you look very lush today. The next one is "arkai." This phrase is also from Old English, and it usually means look at him or look at you. The word "ark" is from the word "hark," which means listen in Old English, and the word "e" is from the word "he" or "thee." So if you are wearing a new jacket, you would probably hear Bristolians say "arkai." The next word is "dabs." You might think of fishing when you hear this word, but it's not that related to fishing. In Bristolian, dabs means plimsolls, which are canvas shoes with rubber soles. And it is believed that dabs is the acronym for Dunlop Athletic plimsolls made in Bristol. So when people in Bristol talk about dabs, that means they are talking about plimsolls. Then let's take a look at an example sentence. Ooh, look at you, you've got new plimsolls. Ooh, arkai, you've got new dabs. Ooh, look at you, you've got new plimsolls. Ooh, arkai, you've got new dabs. The next one is Astol. You would probably think of one brand when you hear this word, right? Yes, Astol means Asda in Bristolian. So when you want to go to Asda in Bristol, you should ask where Astol is. The next one is cider. This word looks a bit strange, right? In Bristolian, cider means cider. So when people in Bristol ask for some cider, you can just bring some cider. Then let's take a look at an example sentence. I'm going to Asda to get some cider. I'm off to Astol to get some cider. I'm going to Asda to get some cider. I'm off to Astol to get some cider. The last one is not a word but a phrase, and it's church drive. You could probably guess what it means, right? In Bristolian, church drive means thank you bus driver. You would often hear this expression in Bristol, since Bristolians often kindly say church drive when they get off. So when you want to say thank you to a bus driver in Bristol, you can say like church drive. Then let's take a look at an example sentence. I've arrived in Bristol, thank you bus driver. I've arrived in Bristol, church drive. I've arrived in Bristol, thank you bus driver. I've arrived in Bristol, church drive. Now we know some Bristol dialect words. I know my Bristolian accent is not perfect, but I hope this one helps you to understand some Bristolian. And that's it for today. Don't forget to subscribe my channel and share this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye!